Good evening, and right before we dive into the main topic, I'll quickly mention that this morning, the January 6th committee held a special meeting over in Washington, D.C. It was held behind closed doors. It was not open to the public. And in that hearing, they questioned Mr. Patrick Byrne, who is the founder of Overstock.com. And they were questioning him about a certain meeting that took place over in the White House between himself, Mr. Patrick Byrne, General Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, as well as President Trump. Now, this was a rather famous meeting, despite the fact that nobody knows what actually took place in the meeting, because for one, it was during this meeting that Sidney Powell was assigned to be a special counsel on election fraud. And secondly, about an hour after the meeting concluded, President Trump sent out that very famous tweet urging people to come to Washington, D.C. on January the 6th and adding that it will be wild. Now, despite the fact that the congressional hearing today was held behind closed doors, well, fear not, because prior to the hearing, well, Mr. Patrick Byrne actually gave us an exclusive interview here at the Epoch Times, and he told us exactly what took place during that famous White House meeting. If you'd like to watch that exclusive interview, the link will be right there at the very top of the description box. And now, let's dive into the main topic for today's discussion. This right here is an American fighter jet being flown by one of our many Air Force pilots. However, as we discussed on a previous episode where we actually interviewed Lieutenant John Bowes, well, the U.S. Air Force is currently facing a serious problem in regards to staffing, largely due to the looming threat of the vaccine mandate. Specifically, the military vaccine mandate, which was set to go into effect within the next few days and effectively kick out about 6,800 U.S. airmen due to their religious objections of the vaccine. However, the government's plan to just kick these people out, well, it met with a bit of a roadblock. That's because just yesterday, a federal court issued a temporary restraining order preventing the Biden administration from taking any action for at least the next 14 days against any member of the U.S. Air Force who opted to not take the vaccine. Specifically, Judge Matthew McFarland, who was appointed to the bench by President Trump about 3 years ago, back in the year 2019, he issued this order right here, which effectively blocks the Biden administration from enforcing their vaccine mandate on all of the thousands of Air Force members who opposed the vaccine on religious grounds but had their religious exemption applications denied, which, just for your reference, the Air Force denied about 98 to 99% of all religious exemption requests. Furthermore, this order actually went one step further, and the judge used it to create something known as a class status, meaning that this restraining order is valid not only for the few service members who are actively suing the government, but rather for all service members in the U.S. Air Force who were denied their religious exemption requests. Here's part of what this order read. And by the way, I just wanted to quickly mention, if you appreciate content like this, please take a super quick moment to smash that like button, and also consider subscribing to this YouTube channel as well. That way we can get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed every single weekday. And now here is what this order said specifically. Quote, "They face separation from the Air Force and other disciplinary measures. A single injunction would provide relief to the entire class. Indeed, the main purpose of a lawsuit class is to provide relief through a single injunction or declaratory judgment. Because the defendants, which in this case is the U.S. Air Force, have uniformly maintained a policy of overriding the airmen's religious objections to the COVID-19 vaccine, they have acted on grounds that apply generally to the class. Moreover, the class definition requires that a chaplain certify that the airmen's religious beliefs are sincerely held. Finally, a single injunction would provide the proposed class with the relief they seek from the harm they stand to suffer." Now, one of the attorneys who's actually representing these service members in this case, he told us here at the Epoch Times that this new class designation is actually not only a huge win, but something of a historic moment in their uphill battle that they've been fighting for the last several months. Here's specifically what the lawyer told one of our reporters here at the Epoch Times. Quote, "The court has now granted a class certification, and that's kind of the historic moment. Air Force-wide, service-wide, it covers every member of the Air Force. And now he's saying, why shouldn't I grant the preliminary injunction to all those folks?" Now, just for your reference, according to the official data which has come out of the Air Force, as of July 11th, meaning as of Monday of this week, 6,800 U.S. service members have been denied their religious accommodation requests, while only 104 have had their requests granted. And if you do the math on that, well, you'll find that that means that 98.5% of the requests were denied. And it's this fact which led the lawyer that we mentioned earlier to make the argument that the Air Force is only giving the illusion of analyzing each service member's religious objection on an individual basis. Here's again what he told us. Quote, "The proof in the case was very clear. The Air Force tried to pretend that they did individualized analysis of each service member's religious objection, and that did occur in terms of the service member proving they had a sincerely held religious belief. But then, the Air Force, in its affidavits, proved that when it came to accommodating that belief, they took the position that we can't grant religious exemptions because we have to save these slots for administrative and medical exemptions. So their own proof was we didn't do the individualized analysis on the back end because we weren't granting any religious exemptions. And it was only once the lawsuits got filed that they granted a few religious exemptions. And all of those folks were near the end of their career. And this is where things got, you can say, a little bit comical in this case, at least in my opinion. Because while on the one hand, the evidence showed that the U.S. Air Force was categorically denying almost all religious accommodation requests, at the same time, the U.S. Air Force was arguing that the judge should not create a class status and that instead, each case should be looked at individually. However, in his official court decision, the judge said that the U.S. Air Force cannot have it both ways. Here's specifically what the judge wrote in his court order, quote, "The Air Force appears to again argue that the court must individually analyze each airman's claims on the one hand, while systematically denying all religious accommodation requests, despite the factual differences defendants claim the court should consider on the other. The court appreciates there may be minor factual differences between the members of the class, including roles, responsibilities, levels of proximity, likelihood of deployment or travel, and ability to telework, as well as different religious beliefs and reasons for objecting to the COVID-19 vaccine. However, these minor differences do not outweigh that defendant's typical response when receiving a religious accommodation request is to deny it. The typicality of the putative class is reflected in the fact that defendants, meaning the U.S. Air Force, have indiscriminately denied almost all religious accommodation requests and their use of form letters to deny the accommodation requests. Such facts suggest that the defendants, again meaning the U.S. Air Force, do not individually weigh each applicant's belief or circumstances in issuing their response, further cementing the typicality of the class. And therefore, the judge in the case established a class status for all unvaccinated members of the U.S. Air Force who had their religious accommodation requests denied. Now, one of our reporters here at the Epoch Times, Miss Beth Brele, she spoke with another one of the lawyers representing the airmen in this case, and that lawyer told her that this judge's order came, well, just in the nick of time. That's because, among other reasons, the lawyer said that when the order was issued, one of her clients was actually in the middle of a board hearing determining the future of his career, as well as whether or not he would actually face disciplinary measures for refusing the vaccine. Here's part of what the lawyer told us, quote, "One of the officers we were representing was facing $1,000 a month pay reduction for 2 months, as well as an official letter of reprimand. We've had people removed from positions of commands because of their alleged violation of this order to get a vaccination, of which they are unable to get because it violates their religious beliefs. Some were stranded in foreign countries after refusing the shot and missed weddings. There's some pretty tragic stories about what has happened." And so, with this new injunction in place, well, the court battle continues, although now, at least temporarily, all members of the U.S. Air Force are protected from punishment, which is a lot more that can be said about their National Guard counterparts, given the fact that exactly 1 week ago, U.S. Army officials officially came out and they announced that a total of 40,000 unvaccinated National Guard troops, as well as about 22,000 Army Reserve soldiers, will be blocked from service and have their paychecks withheld for refusing the vaccines. And frankly, just like what we saw with the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army is also rather stingy in regards to granting religious accommodation requests. In fact, according to the U.S. Army's own publicly available vaccination data, as of today, across all states and U.S. territories, only 23 permanent medical exemptions have been granted, while only 19 permanent religious exemptions have been granted. And so I can only imagine that the National Guard troops are watching this U.S. Air Force case with bated breath in order to see how it plays out. Because if the airmen ultimately prevail, well, that would potentially provide a legal precedent that other branches of the military can use to likewise fight back against their own vaccine mandates as well. Until then, if you'd like to read more about this ongoing legal battle, including the full version of this 22-page order blocking the U.S. Air Force mandate, I'll throw a link to the PDF version of it down into the description box below this video. And all I ask in return is that if you haven't already, take a quick moment to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as, if you haven't already, subscribe to this YouTube channel as well, that we can get this type of honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed every single weekday. And now what's this? Of course it's Sekur, because we use the Sekur app, which is the sponsor of today's episode, as well as an awesome email and message service provider that actually cares about your privacy. Now listen, it's no big secret that our data is being mined and remined all the time. In fact, there was a recent study that was published in the year 2020, which found that 155 million Americans, likely including you and me, have suffered some form of data breach. And frankly, that's only what's publicly known. However, all those past problems with privacy issues and data mining, well, that can be an issue of the past, because moving forward, you can use the Sekur app, which both your messages, your emails, and your phone calls can remain private. That's because they have their servers and their data centers located in Switzerland instead of in the US or China or Russia. And why does that matter? Because Switzerland has the strictest data privacy laws in the entire world, and they are not subject to the intrusive Cloud Act. Now, what I love the most about the Sekur app is that they don't collect my data, they don't mine my data, they don't mine the data and phone numbers of my friends and family. Everything is private. And best of all, at least in my opinion, this does not work with your big tech email provider just because it is not secure. And so check it out. You can head on over to sekur.com, and if you use promo code Roman, you can get 25% off. And frankly, their rates are not even that expensive. It only starts with $5 for the messenger and $10 for the email and messenger combo. And best of all, they offer a 7-day free trial. And now lastly, as I mentioned at the top of the video, earlier this morning, the January 6th committee held a special meeting behind closed doors where they questioned Mr. Patrick Byrne about what exactly took place during a White House meeting between himself, General Michael Flynn, Sidney Powell, as well as President Trump back in December 18th of 2020. Now again, this meeting is very mysterious. It's shrouded in a lot of mystique because not only was this the meeting that Sidney Powell was assigned to be a special counsel on election fraud, but also about an hour after this meeting concluded, well, like I mentioned earlier, President Trump sent out that very famous tweet urging people to come to Washington, D.C. on January the 6th and saying that it will be wild. Now again, for the longest time, we had no idea what took place during that 4-hour White House meeting, but well, now we do. Because just yesterday, while I was down in D.C., Patrick Byrne sat down with me exclusively and told us exactly what took place step by step during that meeting. Here's what he said.
I was just going to say, I have the bomb or the suitcase, that what everything is about, what was discussed in that December 18th meeting, and no one knows. Roman is going to be the first person, the first journalist who's going to be walked. This is the radioactive.
And so if you'd like to watch the entirety of that interview, you can find it right there. The link will be at the very top of the description box because frankly, I would love to post it here on YouTube so ever more people can reach it. But frankly, the censorship regime here does not allow it. And so if you would like to check it out, you can see it over on Epoch TV, our awesome no censorship video platform, where I should mention, not only can you watch the entirety of that video, which is about an hour long, but also every single week, I actually post 2 exclusive episodes over on Epoch TV that you cannot find here on YouTube. So again, the link will be right there at the very top of the description box. I hope you check it out. And then until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed, and most importantly, stay free.